Liam had always believed that dreams were quiet things, the kind that grow slowly in the corners of a person's heart without making noise or demanding attention. They do not arrive with fireworks or loud promises. Instead, they appear gently, almost like a whisper that follows someone through the years of their life. For Liam, that whisper had started when he was very young. At that time he did not fully understand what he wanted, but he carried a simple picture in his mind. A small house with warm lights glowing through the windows and a car resting peacefully in the driveway. It was not a dream about luxury or showing success to others. It was something much deeper than that. It was about belonging, about stability, about having a place that would still be there tomorrow and the day after that. Liam grew up in a world where stability was rare. His childhood was shaped by constant movement from one place to another as his family searched for better opportunities that never seemed to last very long. Some homes were crowded apartments above noisy streets where traffic never truly slept, while others were small aging houses where cold winter winds slipped through cracked windows and made the nights feel longer than they should have been. With each move, Liam learned to pack his belongings quickly and adjust to unfamiliar surroundings, but every time he left a place behind he felt a quiet longing for something that would stay the same. As a child, he often watched other families in their neighborhoods, noticing how they returned to the same homes every evening and how their cars waited in the same driveways day after day. Those ordinary things seemed almost magical to him because they represented something he rarely experienced: permanence. While other children dreamed about fame, adventure, or traveling the world, Liam dreamed about something surprisingly simple. He wanted a place to call his own, somewhere peaceful where memories could grow instead of being left behind. As he grew older, that dream did not fade. Instead, it became clearer and stronger. When Liam finished school and stepped into the adult world, reality greeted him with challenges that many people know well. Work was not glamorous, and success did not appear quickly. His first job required long hours performing tasks that rarely earned recognition. Each morning he woke before sunrise and traveled through quiet streets toward a workplace where effort often felt invisible. The pay was modest, and the responsibilities were heavy, but Liam accepted the routine with patience because he believed something important: every small step mattered. At night he returned to a tiny rented room that barely held the few possessions he owned. The room was simple, almost empty, yet it gave him the space he needed to think. Often he would sit beside the window and look out at the distant lights of the city. Those lights represented possibilities, entire lives unfolding somewhere beyond the narrow streets he walked each day. During those quiet nights, Liam would imagine the future again. He pictured the small house he had dreamed about for so many years, the peaceful evenings inside it, and the quiet comfort of knowing that he had built something lasting. There were moments when doubt tried to creep into his mind. He watched people around him struggle with similar dreams, and many eventually gave up, deciding that stability was something only fortunate people achieved. But Liam carried a different belief. He understood that dreams are not built through luck alone. They grow through patience, discipline, and the willingness to continue moving forward even when progress feels slow. Years passed, and though life was not always easy, Liam never stopped working toward his goal. He changed jobs when better opportunities appeared, learned new skills during long evenings after work, and carefully saved money even when it required sacrificing small comforts. Friends sometimes wondered why he lived so cautiously, why he did not spend more on temporary pleasures or chase excitement the way others did. Liam simply smiled when they asked those questions because he knew something they did not fully understand yet: temporary happiness fades quickly, but the satisfaction of building something meaningful lasts much longer. Slowly, almost invisibly at first, his life began to change. Better work brought better income, and experience built confidence that he had never felt before. The dream that once seemed distant started to feel possible. Still, Liam remained patient. He knew that rushing toward success could undo years of careful effort, so he continued saving and planning with the same quiet determination that had guided him from the beginning. One ordinary morning, something unexpected happened. A colleague mentioned that a small house in a quiet neighborhood had become available. It was modest, nothing extravagant, but it was surrounded by trees and calm streets where life moved at a slower pace. At first Liam felt hesitation because dreams can be frightening when they suddenly appear within reach. For years the idea had lived safely in his imagination, but now it stood in front of him as a real possibility that required courage. After thinking about it for several days, he decided to visit the house. The moment he stepped through the front door, something inside him shifted. Sunlight streamed gently through the windows, warming the wooden floor and filling the rooms with a peaceful glow. The space was simple yet welcoming, as though it had been quietly waiting for someone to bring it to life. Liam walked slowly from room to room, imagining the future that could unfold within those walls. He pictured waking up in the morning light, preparing meals in the small kitchen, and returning home after long days of work knowing that the place belonged to him. The thought filled him with a deep mixture of excitement and disbelief. Over the following weeks, he navigated the complicated process of paperwork, financial planning, and careful decisions. Each step brought him closer to the life he had imagined for so long. Finally, the day arrived when the keys were placed in his hand. The moment was quiet, almost peaceful, without dramatic celebrations or crowds of people. Yet to Liam it felt monumental. Those small metal keys carried the weight of every sacrifice he had made and every moment he had refused to give up. Standing outside the house, he looked at it again and realized that the dream had finally become real. A few days later, another piece of the dream appeared when he parked his first car in the driveway. It was not the most expensive vehicle on the road, but to Liam it symbolized independence and progress. That evening he sat on the front steps of his new home as the sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of gold and purple. The neighborhood was calm, and the air carried the peaceful rhythm of ordinary life. Holding the keys in his hand, Liam reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He understood something important then: the dream had never been only about owning a house or a car. It had been about becoming the kind of person who refused to give up on a vision, no matter how long it took to achieve. Every difficult day had built strength, every sacrifice had shaped discipline, and every moment of doubt had strengthened his determination to keep moving forward. As night settled gently over the quiet street, Liam stood up and walked inside his home. The warm lights illuminated the rooms, and for the first time in his life he felt a deep sense of belonging. The dream he had carried quietly for so many years had finally become reality, and with it came a powerful realization: dreams do not change our lives only when they come true, they transform us during the long journey of becoming the person capable of achieving them. After the first few months, Liam began to notice that the feeling of finally having a home was not a static triumph but a living, breathing part of his daily life. Each morning brought a quiet joy that had nothing to do with novelty or luxury. Instead, it was in the simple rhythms: the sound of the coffee brewing in the kitchen, the soft rustle of leaves in the yard, the distant laughter of children playing down the street. Every ordinary moment became infused with a sense of belonging he had rarely known before. Liam began to develop small routines that made the house feel more like his own. He started with the kitchen, arranging his modest collection of pots and pans in ways that were both practical and comforting. He experimented with cooking new dishes, savoring the act of preparing meals in a space that belonged entirely to him. At first, mistakes were inevitable: burnt bread, overcooked pasta, but each attempt was a lesson, not a frustration. In this environment, failure felt less like defeat and more like part of the journey. The evenings were particularly special. Liam often sat by the large window in the living room, letting the fading light spill across the wooden floor. Sometimes he would open a book, sometimes he would simply watch the world outside. Neighbors passed by, exchanging polite smiles or brief greetings, and for the first time in his life, Liam felt a quiet connection to the broader rhythm of life beyond his own struggles. He began to notice patterns in the neighborhood: the mail carrier's punctual footsteps, the way a dog barked at the same hour every evening, the soft humming of a car engine from a nearby street. These small consistencies, once invisible to him, became reassuring markers of permanence, a subtle proof that stability was real and enduring. One afternoon, while arranging some books on the shelf, Liam realized that the house had begun to mirror his inner transformation. Where once it had been simply a space to occupy, it had become a canvas for life itself. He placed a few framed photographs on the mantel, images of places he had lived, moments that had shaped him, and people who had offered support along the way. Each image was a reminder of the journey he had endured and the lessons he had learned. The walls, once bare, began to tell a story that only he fully understood, the story of persistence, patience, and quiet triumph. Liam also began to embrace the small freedoms his new life allowed. For years, he had followed the rigid schedules imposed by necessity, long commutes, multiple part-time jobs, evenings spent catching up on unpaid overtime. Now, he could choose how to spend his time. Some days he drove to nearby parks just to walk, enjoying the sunlight on his face and the way the trees swayed in the breeze. Other days, he spent hours in quiet contemplation, thinking not about survival, but about purpose. These moments of choice, once rare, became treasures, and Liam learned to value them deeply. Yet even in the midst of peace, Liam encountered moments of doubt. Stability was not an endpoint, it was a responsibility. Maintaining a home required ongoing attention, effort, and vigilance. Bills needed to be paid, maintenance tasks could not be ignored, and the freedom he had gained carried its own weight. On particularly long days, when paperwork and errands seemed overwhelming, he felt a fleeting panic, the same quiet unease that had haunted him in earlier years. But unlike before, these moments did not dominate him. Liam had learned that persistence was not only about enduring challenges but also about embracing them with calm determination. He worked through each task methodically, reminding himself that every small act of care contributed to the larger vision of a life built on patience. The car in the driveway, which had once seemed like a simple token of independence, became a companion in his exploration of possibility. Liam started to take short trips to nearby towns, learning about places he had only read about or glimpsed in passing. He discovered quiet cafes tucked into side streets, libraries filled with forgotten books, and nature trails where the world felt entirely his own. Each excursion was a subtle expansion of the life he had longed for, a reminder that stability was not confinement, but a foundation from which he could explore the world with confidence. One day, as he drove through a neighboring town, Liam noticed a small community garden. Rows of vegetables and flowers grew in neat patterns, tended carefully by people who clearly took pride in their work. Something about the sight resonated deeply within him. He parked the car and wandered through the garden, observing how each plant had its own pace, each bloom appearing in its own time. Watching the gardeners at work, Liam realized that life mirrored this same natural rhythm. Dreams, like plants, could not be forced. They required patience, care, and a willingness to accept gradual growth. Inspired, Liam decided to start a small garden in his own yard. At first, he planted a few hardy flowers and herbs, unsure if he could nurture them successfully. Some seeds failed to sprout, others grew slowly, almost imperceptibly. Yet Liam persisted, learning through trial and error, adjusting watering schedules, and observing sunlight patterns. Weeks later, tiny green shoots began to emerge, fragile yet resilient. Liam felt a quiet joy at the sight, a reminder that small, steady effort always bore fruit, even if the results were not immediate. The garden soon became more than just plants, it became a space of reflection and connection. Neighbors passing by would occasionally stop to ask about his flowers, sharing their own tips or stories about previous gardens. Liam found himself giving advice, not in a commanding way, but with gentle encouragement, passing on the lessons he had accumulated over years of perseverance. In those interactions, he saw glimpses of the same longing he had felt as a child, the yearning for stability, for a sense of home, for a life that made quiet, meaningful sense. And in helping others, Liam discovered a new dimension to his dream. Fulfillment was no longer solely personal. It could ripple outward, touching lives in ways he had never anticipated. With each passing season, the house, the garden, and Liam himself grew more intertwined. The wooden floor of the living room developed faint grooves and scratches, each one a testament to daily life and lived experience. The walls absorbed warmth and laughter, echoing tiny celebrations and moments of quiet contentment. Even the small driveway became a symbol of progress. The car parked there was no longer just a vehicle, but a representation of journeys taken, challenges overcome, and independence earned. As years went by, Liam began to reflect more on the journey itself than the destination. He remembered the restless nights in crowded apartments, the anxious commutes, the evenings spent in solitude imagining a future that often seemed unreachable. He thought about the long hours of work, the careful budgeting, the moments when doubt threatened to overwhelm him, and he realized that every one of those experiences had been essential. Without them, he would not have developed the resilience, patience, and clarity of purpose that now defined his life. Occasionally, friends or acquaintances would ask him to share the story of his journey. Liam would recount it with gentle humility, emphasizing the quiet, steady steps that led him to fulfillment rather than dramatic moments of luck or fortune. He would tell them about the power of persistence, the importance of maintaining hope during long stretches of uncertainty, and the subtle lessons that only patience could teach. Often, listeners left inspired, carrying a small ember of determination back into their own lives. Over time, Liam's perspective on dreams continued to evolve. He understood that achieving a goal was not merely a matter of possession or status. The house, the car, and even the garden were symbols, tangible reminders of the inner transformation he had undergone. What truly mattered was the process, the steady cultivation of character, the disciplined pursuit of purpose, the willingness to continue even when the world offered no guarantees. Dreams were not static endpoints, they were living journeys that reshaped the dreamer as much as they reshaped the external world. The neighborhood itself became part of Liam's ongoing education in life. He learned the subtle art of community, watching out for neighbors, offering help when needed, and celebrating small victories together. Over time, casual greetings became familiar faces, and familiar faces became friends. Birthdays, holidays, and local events became occasions to engage in shared experiences, and Liam began to understand that a home was more than bricks and wood, it was a web of relationships, trust, and shared presence. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and the neighborhood settled into a gentle hush, Liam would often step outside, lean against the porch railing, and breathe deeply. The air carried the soft scent of flowers, the faint rustle of leaves, and the distant hum of life continuing quietly but purposefully. He would glance at the windows of his house, where warm lights glowed steadily, and at the driveway, where the car rested in patient readiness. In those moments, he felt the full weight and beauty of his journey, the years of struggle, the lessons learned, the discipline nurtured, and the unwavering faith that had brought him here. And with a quiet smile, Liam would acknowledge the truth that had been hidden in plain sight all along: dreams are not fleeting sparks, meant to dazzle and disappear. They are steady, persistent whispers that, if tended with care, patience, and integrity, have the power to transform not just the life we live, but the person we become along the way. The house continued to fill with memories. Birthdays, small celebrations, and moments of solitude all left their mark. Liam decorated the rooms slowly, adding personal touches with each passing year: a new rug here, a painting there, a handcrafted shelf made during a weekend of quiet labor. Each addition was not extravagant but deliberate, each choice a reflection of taste, intention, and the understanding that life's richness came not from excess but from thoughtful presence. Over time, Liam also embraced the intangible joys of stability. The first winter spent in the house brought a sense of quiet coziness that he had never known. Snow blanketed the yard one evening, and Liam sat by the window with a warm cup of tea, watching the flakes descend gently. He felt the house breathe around him, a companion in its own right, sheltering him from the cold and reflecting the warmth he carried within. The smallest things, a morning spent listening to rain against the roof, a cup of coffee on the porch as sunlight filtered through trees, a quiet conversation with a neighbor, became sources of profound contentment. Through these experiences, Liam came to understand a deeper truth: the value of dreams lies not in their achievement alone but in the shaping of character that the pursuit requires. The house and car were symbols, yes, but they also represented decades of discipline, resilience, and hope. They were physical manifestations of intangible virtues that had been cultivated over years of quiet effort. He recognized that in teaching these lessons to others, through conversation, example, and gentle guidance, he was extending the significance of his own journey far beyond the walls of his home. And so, Liam continued, day by day, year by year, living a life quietly rich in purpose, reflection, and meaning. He understood that the journey of dreams never truly ends, it merely evolves, revealing deeper layers of experience, connection, and personal growth. The small house with warm lights and the car resting in the driveway had become more than a go.